T-minus 11 days until the first bounce of the 2026 season. Who's ready for some football? This guy. Welcome back to One More Night, a UCF podcast, one team, one heartbeat. This is Coach Wolf, and here are the 5 things we're going to run down today. First, we're going to talk about my first ever trip to Fan Fest, where I got to meet some of the football players, Coach Frost, and also just want to give you a little bit of my thoughts on fall camp, how it's going so far. Second thing, we're going to go around the pitch. Both men's and women's soccer are competing currently, and we want to talk about some of their results from some of their first games. Then, third, who's ready for some volleyball? Well, we'll talk about the Knights getting ready for their first weekend tournament this weekend that they'll be hosting, as well as I'll give you some feedback on my first week of doing tryouts for my team. Four, we're going to talk about the week zero predictions. So, yes, next weekend we'll have some college football. Can't tell you I'm sad because I'm looking forward to that. So, we'll talk about some of those predictions. And five, the last thing is the top 25. There's the preseason poll, and I give you my reactions. So, first, let's talk about my trip to FanFest. So most of the time, I never get to go to Fan Fest due to the fact that one of my younger ones is always playing football on that same day, and it's always about the same time, so I'm never able to do it. Well, now that he's gotten older, the other one's in high school, their game wasn't until late in the afternoon. So I was like, perfect. I can actually go out to Fan Fest. So it was my first time ever experiencing that. I really did enjoy it. Got to go out there, and the biggest thing was is you get to see all the players. So that's kind of nice. You get to kind of have some conversations with them and get to see them out of their equipment. So you kind of most of the time they always have their helmet and numbers. And it was nice to be able to you know actually see them and get to interact with them. I also got to meet Coach Frost. I know hearing a lot of people online kind of waiting. They're like not real sure about him, but I just feel like you also have to give Coach Frost a little bit of some leeway. He's right in the middle of fall camp. They had just finished, working that morning, and I'm sure he had a lot of on his thoughts. I mean, he was very interactive with me. I thought it was great, but I know some people were like, it's just not as personable as Gus is. Yeah, but they don't miss Gus. But I actually really like Frost. I like his interactions. I like how he answers things. I know it's kind of stale for some people, but to me, I really enjoyed listening to him, hearing his thoughts, and even just talking to him there. I thought it was great. So my interaction was much different than some of the others. Um, then there's also the other teams that were there, and I'll kind of get into some of those here in a moment. But they have, both the men's, women's soccer, volleyball teams were all there. You were able to get some autographs and talk to them, along with the football players. And then, of course, you had the cheer team, and all that was down there as well. So, just a great atmosphere. In the addition, financial arena there was able to, you go upstairs, you go downstairs, you're able to kind of see everybody. The biggest couple things I was excited about. So first of all, ended up going to get a cap, and got a whole bunch of the players to sign the cap. And as pretty much anybody I talked to, I said just sign it anywhere. I just want to have that. But probably the biggest thing that I have is I got Coach Frost right here with the signature, and then I got Alonzo Burnett. So I only had these two sign the football for this reason. I'm hoping it's a special season. You never know. And I didn't want to have everybody on this. So I have the coach and the quarterback. The only other one I would love to add to this is Mackenzie Milton. I would love to get his signature on the ball. Um, and maybe that can happen at a later time. But if they have a real special season, then I would want to kind of note what that is, and then definitely save that ball for memories. Could it be a Big 12 title? Maybe more. Who knows? I mean, I don't think so. Giving you my prediction, I think 8-4. I think we have a much better season. But as I've said in other podcasts, I mean, you just never know. I've even heard some of the other ones, saying kind of we're a dark horse, saying we could have a special season. There's so much unknown. And my dad and I talk about this all the time. It's like, even these preseason polls that I'll talk about here in a little bit. I mean, it really is just you don't know. I mean, somebody will be in it and fall all the way out of it by October, and somebody you didn't think will be there in October. Like it's just that first 4 or 5 weeks, you're just really finding out, who everybody is. You have some, key matchups. You'll see some teams whether they start to go up or down. But probably the most exciting thing for me and I know this is kind of homer of me, but Caden Peening, who is a tight end, I've known him since he was like 3 or 4 years old, and I worked with his mom at the Y, and he played in the sports there, and just got to watch him develop for a couple of years before things changed, and he ended up moving back to Ohio. Mom moved back up there, and he's been playing there, but I've been keeping up with him, and was super excited when he chose UCF. And then when Gus decided he was leaving, he kind of opened back up his recruitment for a minute, but came here anyway. And just super excited to see him. Actually, in my interaction with Coach Frost, I mentioned about that I'd worked with his mom, and really excited here. And Coach Frost had nothing but nice things to say. But there's also they give out the posters and everything as well. Well, I've got the poster, but I only have one name on it, and that's his. Let's see if I can get it to pick up. I think I can. Yeah, I can't get it to pick up, but I got just Caden's signature on here. So just the poster, I've got Caden's signature on here. Um, but I just told him, I said, "You're the only one signing this, so make it big," and he did. And I took a picture with him, and I actually took a picture with Flag, who is the cornerback, and told him, I said, Colton, my little one, wears 18, and he's kind of a lockdown corner. So I said, I got to get a picture with you too. So I took, Caden's 18, he's 18, but Caden plays offense. But, just, it was an exciting time. And kind of wanted to address some of the things. There has been some people asking me some questions. And again, apologize for not getting the weekday out with tryouts going on with volleyball. It's just been crazy start of school, but I know I'll get in a rhythm here shortly. But I tell you, it's been so good seeing the battle. And Scott's even said, I mean, competition's not going to end when this first game's like starting lineup comes out. It's going to be each and every week. And I was going to break it down and kind of spread it to episodes, but I decided I'd just talk about it right here. So if it runs a little bit long with me not getting a weekday in, I just wanted to be able to address a lot of those questions. So the biggest question has not been about Alonzo Burnett. We know that's QB1, but it's about QB2. And so people have asked me because it seems like Caleb Annett has kind of solidified himself as that number two based off what we're seeing in the first couple of weeks of the fall camp. And here's why I think that is. Well, one, everybody was really bent out of shape when Alonzo never got any time in the spring, and nervous about that. And I'm not saying there wasn't, we're definitely concerned if somebody's not fully healthy, but this gave Kiwan and Caleb a chance to really kind of be out in the spotlight. Now, Kiwan was getting a lot of the reps with the ones, and Caleb was getting a lot of reps with the twos, but both of them were getting lots of reps. What Alonzo would have been in there probably wouldn't have been that way. And I just think Caleb has now taken advantage of that. I think with the reps he was put in, because the good thing about reps is you're also getting feedback on your reps. So you're getting more tape out there, more things that Coach Milton and Coach Frost can kind of be like, hey, we need to clean up this, and then you can work on that in live action. So I think it actually allowed him to progress farther. And it does seem, at least in the current status, that he's kind of above that. and maybe even now that Rocco's healthy, because he mentioned that Frost did that he kind of still had some lingering stuff going on in the spring from his high school days, but has really ramped up as well. So it's curious to see, but I think if Alonzo would have played during the spring, I don't know if Caleb would be as far along as he is. So, and you want to be able to get the best player. I mean, Kiwan may have more game time reps, but Caleb may be the better quarterback. And again, we don't know, but that's just kind of what I'm seeing. We're gonna know that first game. I can't imagine Bethune Cookman um, giving us that big of a challenge. And so I would think that they're going to want to keep Alonzo in to get some chemistry down. And then when they pull him out, the second one that comes out, I think is going to say a lot of who they have as that number two quarterback. So that's the one that's been asking. Now the running back room's crazy between Chambers, and of course you have Swift or Swint, sorry, Swint, and then you have Duke Watson. So you have those three, and it just seems like it's a little bit of a rotation, a little bit of a rotation. I still feel, and again, this is just a feeling. I feel like both Swint and Watson are very similar in style and both very good. But I think Chambers may get a little bit more at the beginning just because of the longevity of, how long he's been doing it. Um, Good, 1,200-yard running back last year. So I still think he may get a little bit out there first and then kind of bounce between the two. But I really see either Watson or Swint eventually probably coming, more of that the feature 1-2 punch, and Chambers may be on specific things. And so I think it may come down to that. The tight end room, again, I know I'm Homer with my boy Caden, but Wade's a great tight end. I'm not taking anything away from him. I was much more impressed with him last year as a UCF Knight than I was when he was at Maryland, but I still have questions on blocking. And so I feel like Caden may be a bigger body, better built for that, in the run game type of blocking versus Wade. And I think he has a lot of upside as far as a big target, strong target. Again, no knock on Wade, but I just feel like, that definitely Wade will be the starting tight end, but watch out. I'm really banking on a big season from Caden and just really feel that. Offensive line, and I know that's been the biggest question mark, and there's still I think they have it more figured out than they're letting you guys know as far as the media and letting us know. And I think they have a pretty good idea of what they're going to do and why people beat out others. Who knows that? But I mean, that's the thing. That's why they have to do this. They have to make sure they have the best five, working all in chemistry. And you're going to have a little bit of rotation probably up there due to some tweaks of ankles and stuff like that. So, but I feel overall they'll figure out the offensive line, but the running backs and the tight ends, to me, it's not going to be just who is the best at the production of catching and also running. It's going to be the one that's also understands the blocking scheme and is able to protect, because that's the one thing is we also have Alonzo back there. We got to protect him, right? We got to protect him, make sure. I think he's going to be more aware than the quarterbacks we had last year of pressure. I think just with his game experience and everything, he's going to feel it and be able to do that. But just feel like that's kind of the offensive stuff there. I think wide receiver is so deep. Um, yeah, I kind of already gave you who I thought, but I mean, it just there's so many of them in that room that could do well. I'm curious to see uh, who rises to the top on that. So on the defensive side of the ball, I really think the biggest question is, can the front four stay healthy? I just don't think we're as deep at that front four as we are in the secondary. And I feel like that's going to be key. I mean, I think we know who we're playing, but just got to make sure we stay healthy. Linebacking room with Lewis, I feel like, I know everybody was like, Cole's back, Cole's back. Now I'm hearing things that maybe it's not going to work out. Not real sure. I mean, it's just crazy with all the things going on right now with this 5 for 5. And basically, after we get through this year, we don't have to worry about it because from here on, everybody has five. Now, Alonzo won't. This is his fifth year, but you know, they'll you'll pretty much have a known or unknown whether they're coming back. So I think with that, I really feel like there's others in that linebacking core that are doing well that would start over Cole, which is what I gave and said it. Now I wouldn't even be surprised if you don't see him in emerging like maybe as a key role until after the bye week. I just feel like those other ones have been there working and they have some good chemistry and the defensive backs. I mean, God, it's a crapshoot. I tell you, I mean, because they would have like three at this table, like three offensive linemen or four offensive linemen. They're spread out over these tables. The defensive backs had the whole backside where the student section was just table after table of defensive backs. They have so many, and then you go to the other side of the gym, and there's three tables, two kickers, two punters, two long snappers. That's it. So it's just so funny how some areas are so deep and then some are not. And know the kicking is going to be one of those things that we're going to have to keep an eye on. But again, I've given you a lot of those things, but I think in camp, for the most part, those were some of the questions that I'd gotten. It was mainly about that QB2 and then just kind of who I thought would like the running backs and what do I think about the offensive line. So it wasn't a whole lot with the defense, but just figured I'd throw that in there. So again, was just super excited to be able to do that and just 11 days and then we kick this thing off. And I know there's football this weekend coming up, which we'll talk about, which is just exciting in general. I'm a college football fan, but really, really excited about the start of the UCF season. All right, so the second thing I was going to get into was about soccer. So the men actually had their first game on Thursday, and it was against Boston University. It was at home, and they would end up getting the win 1-0. They outshot Boston 17-6. We didn't even have a save because the defense is definitely strong for UCF men's soccer, and so I think that's going to be a strength of ours. I mean, they didn't even get a chance for a goalie to get a save, but their goalie made four saves. But the one that they didn't make, Fujita, 56th minute, got the goal. That's what gave us the victory, 1-0. They're actually playing tonight at FAU at 6 p.m. before coming back next week and hosting our dreaded Bulls, horns down. USF comes to us on Friday. And like I said, we're just hoping the men get to a better start because they did well winning it last year, the Sun Belt Conference, but we did get a slow start, so hoping to be off to a fast start. And speaking of a fast start, let's flip over to women's. The women's had already beaten the Gators, and they were on the road to LSU last Thursday, and LSU was ranked 21st, and we would outshoot them 11-8. We would have two saves to their zero saves. And we end up getting the victory 2-1 because we scored. Lockett scored in the 38th minute. Patrick scored in the 63rd minute. And so we were up 2-0, which is great. They did come back, and the Tigers got a goal at the 76th minute. But, coming out with basically two SEC wins to start off the season, very, very strong. That's a great way to start, 2-0. And their next game is actually tonight as well. And it's against the dreaded Bulls, horns down. And it's at 6 o'clock and it's on the road. So they're over in Tampa. So both men's and women's playing tonight, though women actually have another game at home on Thursday night versus UAB. So they're kind of up in full swing. And what we're going to do now is before we jump into the next thing, we're going to just take a quick break and let you hear from our sponsor. So One More Night is sponsored by Blink. Who wants to be filling in that blank. If you know anybody that's interested, they can reach out in one of three ways. I have email ucf.onemorenight@gmail.com. And again, that's one, like the number one, nights like the K nights, like we have with our mascot. So the number one and K and nights, our night, I should say it's singular. So ucf.onemorenight@gmail.com. I can also be hit up on X or Twitter at UCF underscore one more night. And on Instagram, you can follow me, UCF underscore one more night. So those are some ways you can get in touch with me. Look forward to hopefully getting a sponsor soon. But let's return back to the episode of One More Night. Now I always have to put a plug in. Running on Duncan as always. So again, I know they don't sponsor me, but they definitely help me get through these episodes. And this week has definitely been a challenging one. So we're gonna shift over and talk about volleyball. All right. So volleyball is getting ready to get underway this weekend. They're hosting the Black and Gold Classic. Their first game will be Friday versus Robert Morris. Then they'll play Saturday, Stony Brook, before Sunday they'll be finishing off the classic with NC State. So looking forward, I did get a chance to talk to Coach Matt Botsford and Ava Armour at FanFest. They were there. I was actually a little disappointed they didn't have a poster there, but maybe I get to a game here, get one because I like to put one up in my room as well. Normally I get the signatures, but I may have to get that at the end of the year when I bring the girls back. So last year when my volleyball team won the county championship, so it's JV and varsity, we went to one of the last home games, got them to take a picture and then also go through and sign autographs and everything. So maybe that's when I can get that, but I still at least want to get a poster at some point. I did get ones for the women's soccer as well. And then, of course, football, I have Cadence on that one. But the thing I like about just talking with Coach Botsford and Ava, is the fact that they remembered the girls that came through. Like they remembered, because I mean they have 100 things to do, and they do these at every game where you can have a picture with them and go through that. But they remembered it from the year before and got to talking. And Coach Botsford asked how we're looking this year, and I said, well, I got tryouts, and I said, Ava, you actually have coached a couple of my girls. Gave her the names of those, and she's like, "Oh," and one of them she was definitely high on. So, I told them I had tryouts. Varsity, was always the toughest. Just so much talent on our school, and with all these girls that are in there, and it's always tough. And then the JV is a little bit more green, more raw, got a little bit more to work with. I mean, some talent, but just just emerging talent and haven't really played together. So it'll be about team chemistry and doing that kind of stuff. But really excited to see, I mean, the challenge is can you stay on top? So can we get back there? And I told Coach Boshford, I said we hope to be back here at the end of the year celebrating another one as you guys are also celebrating some successful volleyball this season. And so, hope to have that. But a tough week for Coach. I start off with 103 girls. I got to go down to 32. I kind of half joking, like, yeah, making a lot of girls cry, and I hate it. Like I said, it's just, I mean, it comes down to eyelashes of just who do I take, who do I don't take. So just looking forward to that. This is over. This week is over, and then I can start the season. You just work with what you got. Hope I made some good decisions. And those girls that I didn't keep, just keep playing. If you love the game, keep playing. I mean, it's a two 1.5 hour and a half sessions looking at that many girls. It's not a perfect science, and I just hope that I've done the best to give them the most successful. So good luck to the volleyball as they get underway next weekend, and be looking forward to kind of keeping track of them as well, and hopefully a little bit better successful season. So all right, let's move on to the fourth thing, and that's week 0, which is coming up next weekend. So when you look at it, there's not always a huge amount of matchups, but there's typically a couple. But even the ranked matchup's not really a matchup. It's number 14 USC, and they're hosting San Jose State, and they're a 38.5 point favorite. So I really kind of said, well, what other ones do we have? And we have a couple of what I consider probably pretty good matchups. You have NC State, Virginia, starting off right at the beginning of the year. It's at Virginia. Virginia is favored by 5.5, and I really just feel like being that it's being played at home early in the year, I think that may be a tough one for a road game for NC State. And I think Virginia will cover that. I know I didn't mention it, but I think USC more than covers the San Jose one. Then you have Jack State, who came to us last year. They're on the road to North Dakota State. Bison are always tough and tough place to play. Uh, they're the North Dakota State is actually favored by a touchdown by 7, and I think they'll cover that as well. So I think North Dakota State will win that one. Then you have Hawaii coming over to the mainland to take on Stanford. Stanford a little better possibly this year, but the Rainbows I think could be a force to be reckoned with, I guess to say. So surprised other than that Stanford's at home that they're 5.5 point favorites, but I feel like Hawaii may come over and stun them at home to start off. So I think Hawaii is a very good chance of winning that one. That's who I'd go with there. Memphis at UNLV. So you got Dan Mullen over there. His last year with the running Rebs did really, really well. They're actually favored at home by 5.5. I don't know exactly what all Memphis has. I know that there's been some turnover, through that conference because of some coaches switching, and of course now there's just lots of turnover everywhere due to the portal. But I think UNLV will win that game, but I just don't think they'll cover. So I think UNLV will come away with a victory, but it'll be closer, come down to maybe a field goal in that one. And then you have just because of the Norvell watch of just how poorly FSU's played the last couple of years after kind of a little run at a national title there. They just have not been themselves the last 2 years. They host New Mexico State. They're favored by 31.5. I don't see any issues with that, but it's going to be people's eyeballs are going to be on Florida State and what do they think they're going to do. And I know I teased it, but I just think Colorado may have a tough one. And I don't know if they'd fire Dion. I mean, he definitely brings a lot of energy, but I just don't think they're going to be that good. And I don't know if Colorado's just going to be able to get through that point. I'm not saying ever, but in the kind of near future. So curious to see, what happens with Prime because I really think if he was to go back to Florida State, I still think he's a good coach. But he's just got to have more dogs, more players, and but that's going to be an interesting watch. And the only one that we have any Big 12 interest in is over in Ireland. You've got North Carolina and TCU, and TCU is favored by 7.5. Um, I wouldn't be surprised, only because it's week one. Do I think that line won't move much? But I think if they after they see North Carolina, I think that's the Bill Belichick effect that maybe he could be a little better. I just with how poorly they were last year, and just don't feel like they got that much better this year. So I think TCU more than covers that 7.5 to get the Big 12 off and running. So that's week 0. But again, just looking forward to college football. I know we don't play next weekend. Again, 11 days out, but just really looking forward to just college football season. It's my favorite. All right, so the last thing, and a couple of you hit me up on this when the top 25, came out, and I actually have listened to a couple of things with like Feinbaum and some of the other shows about the top 25, and for the most part, I don't take a lot of stock in it. Kind of I told you, I mean, really until mid-October, 4 or 5, 6 weeks in, does it really kind of all shake out, which is why they don't do the college football playoff rankings till later too. I mean, like you got to shake all these teams out. So I think a lot of this is brand loyalty in a lot of ways and a little bit of feeling. It's just it's not a lot of what they're going to have. And I know I've been getting a lot of flack about the Oklahoma State, my take on them, and like, you can change it in a year now. Look what Indiana did with Kirk Cignetti and how quickly they rose. Okay, I get it. I get. I'm not saying that. It's just I felt like there was too much to fix at Oklahoma State for them to be that good. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see. And if I'm wrong, I'll come out and congratulate Oklahoma State, but I just feel like some of those are there. So the brand names are really kind of leading it. So I'm going to give you like the top 10, and then I'm going to talk through. Actually, I'll give you the full 25 first, and then we'll kind of hone in on those top 10 because those are the ones that you kind of like. Okay, do they do there? And I'll give you some more insight on what I feel. But preseason poll has Ohio State 1, Oregon 2, Georgia 3, Notre Dame 4, Texas 5, followed by Indiana at 6, Miami at 7, Texas A&M at 8, Ole Miss at 9, Oklahoma at 10. That rounds out your top 10. And then LSU 11, Texas Tech, there's our first Big 12 team, is at 12. And then Alabama 13, USC 14, BYU 15, Michigan 16, Washington 17, Penn State 18. And then going down those last couple, 19 is SMU, 20 Tennessee, 21 Utah, 22 Iowa, 23 Houston, 24 Louisville, and 25 Missouri. So in that mix of the top 25, of course, the most represented is the SEC with 8, but only one over. Actually, I'm sorry, 9. Only one over the Big Ten that has 8. So nine SEC teams, 8 Big Ten teams. We're next in line with 4 of the Big 12, and then ACC has 3. And of course, you have the independent Notre Dame that rounds out the 25. Now, looking at this again, I think it's all kind of brands and feelings, and we really don't know what they have. I almost could see the Oregon Ohio State flipped. It's one of those things. It's just hard to believe that Oregon's not going to get over the hump at some point with Dan Lanning. It just feels like, it's going to be their year soon. And so maybe that could be flipped around, but definitely don't see Georgia over Texas. I feel like that's Texas hasn't done it consistently where Georgia has, and we're just going to give them the favorable that they're more consistent. But I think Texas is a very dangerous team this year. Notre Dame at 4. My thing is that you're putting them up there, kind of maybe guaranteeing them that they're not on that cusp. And as long as they don't slip up and they have a very soft schedule, I just see them being fine and don't really have an issue there. My thing is that we all know, I state this every year, Notre Dame could have 3 or 4 losses. They're still going to stay in the top 25 because they're Notre Dame. So that's kind of my joke on them. But really, in that top 5, that's kind of the only ones that are, I thought maybe some different order, maybe possibly, but that Indiana with a repeat as 6. Why is that? Well, a lot of that's their schedule. They have a gauntlet, and if they do well against these teams are going to be in the top 25 probably when they play them. And if they win, it'll be a huge thing, and they could tick up and strengthen up their schedule there. But I just think there's a real concern. Can they, even get out of their own conference without 2 or 3 losses? So I think that's kind of where they're at. I think the same thing for Miami. They typically have had some struggles. So as long as they have no hiccups, because they seem to always have that game that hiccup on. So I just don't feel like they put them up there, but they could strengthen up. Texas A&M feel pretty good about. Ole Miss got a new coach, but it's very much the nucleus of the team. So is coaching really going to make that difference? They seem to think that Ole Miss will be there. Now Oklahoma, they may be a little higher than that. I think they could possibly be lower, and if they win some of those games, again, gauntlet of the schedule, then they could move up. I think they may be a little high. I mean, is the Lane Kiffin effect for LSU? We'll see. I feel like Texas Tech at 12 is a lot. We're laying that egg last year, just looking so terrible. The QB controversy. Now you have one. Is he fully healthy? There's question on offense. I don't question the defense, but is the offense going to be there for them? Again, we'll have to see. Alabama at 13, that's the DeBoer effect. I'm just not a big believer in him, and we'll see. We'll see. I mean, he's had another year to kind of get some things set. We'll see. Don't really know much about a lot of the teams out west. Are really the Big Ten in general. BYU, um, their biggest question marks wide receiver for me. I feel like they're strong in other places. And will Bear Brockmeyer have a sophomore slump? I mean, that's kind of my only thing, but they're at 15. Again, Michigan, Washington, not real sure. Penn State with the new coaching staff. A lot of those kids coming over. I mean, it's a power four to power four move, but different conference teams that you haven't played. Penn State typically has a pretty challenging, schedule. So we'll see. And they've had trouble winning the big games under Franklin. So can that change? We'll see. SMU year over year just seems to be proven that they're going to be a nemesis in the ACC. I mean, they've proven it over the last few years. So I feel like them being in the top 25. Tennessee, I question just because Josh seems to be struggling with the quarterback situation. Like, not real sure who's leading his team. He seems to always figure it out, and his offenses typically always do well. But some questions there needs to be answered. Utah, again, a lot of returning players, but the whole coaching situation and then going to another school seems like it's kind of pushed out. Is that team a unit, cohesive? You know, come to see. I mean, I definitely think they can push. I mean, I even have them possibly being undefeated through a lot of it before actually hiccuping and actually taking, beating BYU, but then losing two other conference games to get BYU back in there. So um, I'm not surprised to see them that low, but I wouldn't just watch them. They could be one that could leapfrog even BYU at some point. Iowa, I don't know a whole lot about. Houston feels too high at the beginning of the year. They were a surprise last year, and granted, they had 10 wins. Do I think they can get 9 wins this year? I do, but I just feel like they need to perform really well against that Texas Tech, and then I have them losing to us. So I have them losing too early, which means that they would be out of it and then kind of making that run at the end of the season. So I'm not saying they won't end up there. I think they could, but I think they're going to struggle those first couple of weeks. 24 Louisville, again, a team that's kind of been there consistently. We'll see. And then the last one, Missouri. Again, some question marks there. So, but like I state, we have no idea. I mean, we're going to kick this thing off and we'll see week to week. I just wouldn't hold too much to it until we get to October. And then maybe around our bye week, I'll kind of come back and we'll kind of look at these preseasons versus the where we are now and see those high risers, high fallers. Um, and just see what happens. But I definitely, just like I said, overall, just looking forward, just getting excited finally. I mean, I'm ready. I told you I don't mind school starting because I get back into coaching. Although this last week was hard, definitely looking forward to getting into my practices this week. And then, of course, I have just the football season coming up, and it's just like I said, it's just a great time of year. Even though I had to go back to work, and being busy is good though. I like it. Keeps me going, and I'm hoping you guys are get just as excited as I am. And again, I got a special episode coming up. I'm hoping to have it have something new, but having trouble right now with getting the schedules or coordinated with the people I want to do it with. But if nothing else, I'll put 100 out because coming up on that milestone next because the 99th episode and coming out with that 100. If it's not that, it'll be shortly after that. I'll try to get a little thing, but just trying to get some interviews and some more happening on my show, and that way you can quit hearing me talk all the time. But those of you that have and hanging on and listening to the content, I really appreciate it. Those that comment, always welcome, and just hope to have a great ride on this second season under Frost and all the fall sports, and just look forward to a great season for all of them. All right, guys, until next time, as always, go Knights, charge on.